Let's get going then. So, welcome everyone to our webinar today on the Bowtie Funnel and how it will drive the growth of tomorrow. I'm Nicola, co-founder of CMO Circle, and today I'm delighted to welcome Mitch, who's the managing director of Future Perform, which is a revenue operations and marketing strategy agency. Mitch started life as us as a marketeer working in the third sector in the UK and Australia and moved into revenue operations 7 years ago. How dare you leave the marketing fold, Mitch? When he's not helping people sort out their HubSpot, you'll find him mucking about with mountain bikes, at ballet class with his 5-year-old daughter, and going to heavy metal gigs and festivals with other middle-aged executives with similarly bad taste in music. Although it sounds like, James, you would disagree about this being bad taste in music. Um, Now, before I hand over to Mitch, please do introduce yourselves in chat. And I have two questions for you today. First one is, I'd love to know how confident you are in your pipeline metrics. And secondly, what percentage of your marketing resource, talking about both headcount and budget, goes into acquisition versus retention? I want to see if anyone's got a decent percentage in retention. Now, I'm going to hand over to Mitch. Please do ask questions as we go. There will be also time for any questions specifically around heavy metal at the end as well. So relevant questions during the session, any music ones we can tackle at the end. Wonderful. Mitch, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. Lovely to meet you all. Thanks for introducing yourselves in chat there. Hey Rupert, hey others. Nice to meet you all. I'm Mitch. I work in a business called Future Perform, and as Nicola said, we do revenue operations and we do marketing strategy. You might think that these are two quite different disciplines, but the way that we view them and talk about them in Future Perform is as the front end, which is the marketing strategy, what people interact it with, what they feel, what they can touch, what they can hear, what they can see. And the back end, which is the revenue operations part, and broadly that's the people, processes, and technology working together to support your go-to-market strategy, front end and back end. And it's only really when those two things are working in perfect harmony that you can scale and grow and understand how you are scaling and growing. And what we found is that actually the marketing strategy part, people have got a really, really robust, firm understanding in. They understand their frameworks. They understand things like their 4Ps and all those sorts of things. It is less common for marketers to understand the revenue operations piece, the infrastructure, technology, and process piece that sits underneath it. And so what I wanted to do today was to share with you a framework that we always use with clients, that we always suggest with clients to use to deploy against the processes, people, and technology that you use to run all of your marketing. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to show you some techniques that you can adopt within your own businesses. And if you don't fancy adopting them yourselves, but you think they're really valuable, we can have a talk about how we can do that for you too. So let's kick off. I wanted to start with a little bit of a story about why these methodologies started becoming important to me. And that really started right at the start of my marketing journey. Here's me heading into my first marketing budget meeting as a new marketing manager some years ago. And I put quite a lot of preparation into this meeting, and I was ready to talk about things like how many impressions we were getting on our website, how many site visits, how people were interacting with our social posts, what our cost per clicks were, all these sorts of things like that. And I thought, look, I'm really, really prepared. I'm going into this meeting with the finance team. I'm going to wow them and show that, I'm the right person for this job, and they've made the right decision employing me. And it was going reasonably well for the first couple of minutes. And then I took a little bit of a pause because I got hit with this question from the CFO. Where's the money? And I thought, are they talking about the money that I'm spending as a marketer? Is that where we're going with this? And so I asked, well, what do you mean? What money are you talking about? And so to me, you really should be asking the sales team about where the money is. The way that this works from my perspective as a marketer is I make lead, give lead to sales. Sales then either turn it into a customer or they don't. If they turn it into a customer, they're a good salesperson. If they don't, they're a bad one. I really, I thought it was that binary at that point in my journey. But then the CFO was a little firmer and he was like, no, look, seriously, look, I need to know how the marketing that you have done and that we have invested in has resulted in revenue. Where is that revenue, Mitch? What's happening here? And I knew that people were buying, I knew that customers were transacting, and I knew that they were doing it as a result of things that they have seen across social media, on our website, through emails that we've sent them. I knew that was happening. I wasn't prepared to give them that information in aggregate, though. And so I sat there and I tried to work it out. And obviously, this wasn't going particularly well. And so what happened in that meeting was, okay, look, fair enough. Can you go away and find out this information? We really want to know what our return on investment is here. We need to understand how you are deploying marketing resource and, more importantly, money. And we need to see what's coming in, because there needs to be more money coming out than what's going in. That's return on investment, right? And so I had to go away and have a little bit of a word with myself and figure out exactly why it is that we do marketing. And so I thought about it, and the answer was fairly obvious to me from this image, as I'm sure it's obvious to everyone on this call. Let's see if anyone gets it. What am I referring to here?
Brand?
We are referring to brand, but something very specific about that brand. Look at Joe's glasses.
Framing?
Ritson?
Well, Ritson. I didn't know he made glasses. Brand visibility.
Oh, right.
Thank you. I'm here all day. Yeah, brand visibility. That's why we do marketing. Why do we want our brands to be visible? Well, the reason we want our brands to be visible is so that we get conversions in one way or another. The reason why we want conversions is because we want this. Businesses want revenue. They want money. That is why they invest money in things like marketing. That's why they employ salespeople. And so I really had to go back to my understanding as a brand new marketer as to what that journey was about. And it's not about making cool messaging or funny GIFs or memes or things like that, which is what I thought it was back then. It's not. It's about taking people on the journey and understanding revenue and understanding where that revenue comes from and making sure that we are able to demonstrate that what we're doing is driving revenue. And so what I needed was an idea, and I needed a system of measurement that could help me understand how many leads marketing were generating each month and through which channels. I needed a way to be able to understand that. Not only did I need to understand that, but I also needed to understand how those leads become marketing qualified leads. What are the influences? What are the triggers? What are the levers that bring people through their buyer's journey? I then needed to understand, in the same place almost, how many of these marketing qualified leads are passed to sales, and more importantly, how many of these marketing qualified leads do sales say, that's brilliant, that's great, that's the sort of person I want to talk to, I'm going to accept that lead and turn it into a sales qualified lead. I also needed to understand how many were not going on that journey and the reasons why, in order to understand that what we are giving to sales is correct, and that we're giving them people that firstly match the ICP that we want to target and can sell to, and secondly are at the right stage of their buyer's journey to facilitate a one-to-one conversation with a seller. And then I needed to understand, out of those sales accepted leads, how many went on to become opportunities and then customers. And I needed all of that information in one place if I could possibly get it. And I thought, well, this is a little bit tricky. What can I do to try and understand this? And so I went away and I spoke to a couple of chief executives and CMOs that I knew. I was working for a venture builder, a private equity firm at the time called Blenheim Chalcott, and they had around 25 different businesses, different stages of market growth. And so one of the chief executives there said, "Hey, look, have you read this thing called Winning by Design?" And I said, "No, I don't know what that is." And he went, "Well, have a look in there because there's something in there called Bowtie Funnel that I think you might like. I think you might like." And there it was. And I read about it and I went, "Do you know what? Actually, I do really like this. This is pretty much exactly what I needed." What I was presented with here was a holistic, like-for-like system of measurement that enabled me to understand how we take people from knowing absolutely nothing about our goods and services all the way through to being our biggest and best customer, a brand ambassador. And then I had a little bit of an epiphany because I thought, well, that's a great theory. It looks nice. It sounds nice. It probably smells nice, you know. But what it didn't have there and then was, well, how do we action this and understand it within the tools and systems that we use to market and sell? And so I looked at this and thought, well, it's quite easy for us to overlay these different strategic milestones to the life cycle stages that exist within the CRM system. And that was kind of like my caveman discovering fire moment. And I thought, okay, well, if we can engineer conversations in each of the businesses in our portfolio where we get all of the stakeholders involved in creating revenue on the same page and get them to agree on what a criteria is for each of these different milestones, it then makes it really, really easy for us to pair those up to life cycle stages within a CRM. I really like HubSpot. Of course, there are other flavors of CRM available that you can also have life cycle stages within. And so that's what I set out doing and started trying to evolve this Bowtie funnel methodology into something that is embedded within CRM systems and allows us to see things in real time as people are transacting with us. And the way that we started to build that out is like this. So we know that it's marketing's job to fill the top of the funnel, right? I'm sure we all agree on that. It's marketing's job to capture data from people right at the beginning of their buyer's journey, or even before they start their buyer's journey, when they're just seeing that they've got problems in their business, but they're not quite able to put a name to what the solution is. And so we knew that those people coming into the database, we would automatically flag as a database subscriber. They might be looking at our blog, they might be subscribed to our blog, but that's about it. We don't have any more information upon them. And the way that we can make sense of that with another framework that we would introduce into the mix here is with a lead scoring model. Now, I'm sure all of us use lead scoring models in one way or another, but some of us might pretend that we do, and we say that we do, but actually we don't. Others might have that really, really developed. One of the ways that we talk about building a lead scoring model and making that work is to split it into two parts, a fit score and an intent score. Now, for subscribers, what we're referring to here is a fit score, and we would award points to someone based on their job title, the geography that they're based in, if that matches where we can sell, the industry that they work in, if that's one of our sweet spots, and a number of other things. Now, with a business email address, you can glean a lot of that information straight off the bat. You can understand what company they work for. Most modern CRM systems will then be able to tell you what kind of revenues that business do. They can tell you what kind of web technologies they use to run their own businesses. Lots of different points, data points in there that we can triangulate to award a fit score point setup to an individual. And again, that relationship is managed by marketing, and they will maintain responsibility of that. As we move through and we nurture subscribers into leads, what we're going to do here is understand something a little bit different. So the first 30 points, so from 0 to 30 points, we would bucket someone as a subscriber, based pretty much solely on the information that we can get about them, which is who they are. The next part of that, which is equally as important, is understanding if they are actually intending on transacting with us. And so we have something here called an intent score. Now, the next set of points that we're awarding around this are to do with how they are interacting with our digital properties. It could be that they're on an email mailing list and they're opening and clicking on content within there. That's getting them back on site. They could be consuming blog content, downloading white papers, looking at pricing pages and things like that on our website. all of those sorts of things to give a leading indication as to whether or not that person is intending to transact with us. The one thing that I have found is probably the clearest indicator is whether or not that person's happy to part with a phone number. And so if someone's in that part and they part with a phone number, we think, okay, brilliant. Look, they're probably expecting a phone call from someone in sales. They wouldn't be doing that unless they're at least a little bit interested. And again, it's marketing's job to handle that part of the journey. What marketing are doing here is they are seeding that individual with email content. They're retargeting them with ads across social, across web, those sorts of things, just to sort of try and get a buzz going with that individual. Once that buzz has been gotten and we're understanding a little bit more about where that individual is at in their buyer's journey, we're then suggesting that they're an MQL, and there's a couple of ways of doing this. The way that I like to split this up is with an MQL grade. So you have A grade MQLs and B grade MQLs. An A grade MQL would be an individual that has accumulated 100 points. And they've accumulated those 100 points in part by interacting with our digital properties, but also crucially filling out a web form entitled something like contact us or talk to sales, exit criteria for where they're at in their sales journey. The other way that we would classify an MQL is as a B grade MQL, which is if they have exhibited all of the intent that we would expect to see, they meet our ICP criteria, but they have not filled out a form to say, yeah, look, I want to speak to sales. They've just done everything but that. And we would consider that a B grade MQL. That is where the relationship changes from being a marketing owned relationship to being a sales development or a new business owned relationship. And the way that we would consider that passing of a baton is if a salesperson has successfully completed a qualification meeting and turned that individual into a sales qualified lead. And at that point in our bow tie journey, the relationship ownership changes from marketing to sales. And so we use the CRM system and alerts and things like that to change ownership there and to pass an alert through, and also to change the life cycle stage automatically in the background. It's then sales's job to take that relationship forward. The way that we would do this and understand if that's happening is with a deal object being created and associated with that lead, with that contact. And if that happens, we know that, okay, there is an opportunity there. There is an opportunity to sell something. So we know that we are changing the life cycle stage of that individual in line with that strategic goal. We're now engaging these opportunities. The lead scoring model ceases to be relevant at this point, and actually what is now relevant is where this individual is at in their sales cycle. And you do that with like a nicely built out sales pipeline with different stages and gates that an individual has to get through. For example, qualification meeting complete, proposal sent, contract sent, commercial negotiation, closed won, closed lost, those sorts of things. And the idea here is to get a very nice formulaic framework that enables your sales team to sell in the way that is most comfortable to them and the way that's going to take the least amount of their time, because we know that salespeople, sometimes they're a bit lazy. But enables us as revenue operations practitioners and also as marketers who want to see what's happening to their leads are able to understand which direction the wind is blowing. And that's what we're talking about here. And that's what's important about this stage, to make sure that those pipeline milestones are in sync with a life cycle stage, which is tied to where someone is at in their buyer's journey. And then, of course, the next thing that we've got here is turning that opportunity into a customer and giving them a really, really, really solid customer experience. And of course, typically, the relationship ownership will change again, and it will then become the job of account management to take that relationship forward and turn a new customer into the best customer. And the way that we understand that is that there is one closed won deal in the sales pipeline. That can then facilitate a handover from the seller to a customer success individual who then takes the relationship forward and then seeks to cultivate it. Cross-sell, upsell, decent onboardings, those sorts of things to ensure that that new customer has got the best chance to stay engaged with your goods and services. And again, we're still tracking that journey, and we're still able to understand how that journey changes because of their life cycle stage change. They've now become a customer. The next thing that customer success need to do is identify which of those new customers are more likely to become the best customers. And once you've been doing this for a little bit of time and you've got maybe 8 to 12 months worth of data, you can start to see in your own database what sorts of businesses make the best customers, which then enables us to feed back to customer success team, product teams, and marketing teams so that they are making sure that those sorts of products and services that people are finding most sticky are brought to the fore and are really, really visible, and we're teaching people how to use them correctly. And to make sure that we're giving that information back to marketing. So marketing can start to fill the top of the funnel with those sorts of individuals that are more likely to convert. And of course, that's keeping the sales team happy. The other really crucial thing about this, and when we get to this point where we're starting to inspire advocacy, this is where people are coming back to us and buying again and again. And we can start to look to these people as product evangelists. If they have transacted with us something like twice within the last 6 months, you know, we're looking at recency, frequency, value metrics here as we're all accustomed to doing so. We could probably consider that person to be an evangelist. And that's really, really key, because the sort of marketing comms that we're sending to these individuals are things like, can you give us any referrals? Would you like to be on a panel with us at an event which is designed to drive new business development? And the reason for that is because referrals are much more likely to convert quicker, and they're free. We're not having to do paid media or things like that or content marketing to attract new people. We're simply asking our best customers to tell us other people that might like the goods and services. And if you have done a great job at onboarding and a great job at understanding how these people have moved through their customer journey, you shouldn't have any problem with that. You shouldn't have any problem getting reviews and referrals and those sorts of things. And it's really, really important to get that bucketing right, because if you start sending marketing comms to people who are not in that stage of their buyer's journey, if they're at their kind of like lead or subscriber or MQL stage of their journey, and you start asking them for referrals, it's probably not going to be successful. It's a disjointed narrative. And so using your CRM to do this bucketing in a very robust formulaic way would prevent those sorts of problems from happening. It ensures that your marketing comms have got a better chance of being right place, right time, right person. And then you've got your people right at the end here, your brand ambassadors, the people that you're going back to time and time again for referrals, the people that are going to sing your praises all over the place. If you can really understand who those are, all of a sudden you've created a brand new marketing channel that that is significantly more cost effective than investing in paid media, content marketing, even aggressive outbound and those sorts of things. And if you get it right, this channel works great. There is businesses like Mention Me who can help you run referral programs and those sorts of things. Other businesses I'm sure exist. I only know Mention Me. They're the only one that I've worked with, but I'm sure there are other partners out there. And realistically, you know, that's the Bowtie funnel kind of in a nutshell, and how I would look to implement it within the CRM system. And the next thing I really want to talk about is the benefits that you then get from doing so. And the main one, once you run some data through it and you've really understood how these things start to work, you can start to understand where the bottlenecks are in your go-to-market strategy. You can start to see how many leads are coming into the top of the funnel and how many new customers are dropping out of the bottom. That then turns into something really, really interesting, because it means that your forecasting then becomes so much more robust because you're using real live data to do it. Once you can understand these 3 key pieces of information, your win rate, so how many people are coming out the bottom of this diagram versus what you get put in the top, your average order value, how much money on average each individual is spending with you, and the amount of time that it takes them to complete that journey. Once you've got those three pieces of information, all of a sudden your forecasting can become so much more robust. You can make some really, really, really cool, accurate forecasting models that are actually pretty simple to build in things like Excel. And then finally, the other thing that you can do is make sure that you're not having awkward meetings like what I had right at the beginning of this story with my CFO. It means that you can come into conversations equipped with the knowledge saying, okay, well, this marketing that we did here, that these people engaged with, it took them on this journey and it took them this long to take that journey. They then got into the sales cycle. We then completed a sale. And this is how much money each of those channels have yielded each month as a result of that activity. And this is, to me, this is great because it means that your finance team will see marketing as a much safer bet if you can start speaking their language. You will retain marketing budgets. You might even get more marketing budgets if they see it as a real safe investment. And ultimately, it keeps you employed as a marketer and shows that actually you are doing a great job and you are creating success for the business that you work within. At least that's what I found, and I haven't had any more awkward conversations with CFOs as a result of implementing Bowtie Funnel. Mic drop. Love this slide. What, the free slide? Yeah, I thought you might.
Mitch, do you want to talk very briefly about the free audit you're offering? And then I have questions, and I'm sure there's some questions from the group as well. I can already see one from Roger.
Yeah, for sure. So we've been offering a free audit. Now, I'll be completely upfront with you. It's a lead hook. I'm fully expecting some of you to want to transact with us after getting a free audit. What it involves. So what we do is we do an 11-point check in a CRM system. We'll get in there and we'll have a look at everything that you've got put together. We'll look at how you've got your marketing hub set up. We will look at your analytics on your website. We will look at how leads are handed over to a sales pipeline. We'll look at how many sales pipelines you've got. We'll look at your data quality. We'll look at how many duplicate records you've got, all those sorts of things. We'll look at your reporting, see if we can make head or tail of it, see if we can see that there is a story that your data is telling. And then 5 days later, we'll come back to you with a report and we'll say in there what the green flags are in your CRM and go-to-market structure, what you're doing really, really great. We will tell you what we think are things that you should probably look at fixing, and we call those amber warnings. And then we'll give you the red flags. We'll tell you what all the bad stuff is that really needs fixing quite quickly. And we'll come back to you and we'll tell you what it's going to take to get you to Bowtie Funnel. And hopefully you'd want to do that piece of work with us.
So Mitch, talking about this audit, what are the biggest issues you see when you're doing this work? So the most common themes that are coming out of audits where you're seeing the red flags.
Poor quality of data, I think, is the number one. And it's so important to get your data right, as we all know. And I think we all say it. I hope we all believe it, but I don't think we all do it. And a lot of that is because we just do not have the time. That keeping data clean is a really, really hard job. AI has made it easier in some respects. It's also made it harder. That seems to be the most common problem. And so setting up robust data lifecycle processes with our clients is kind of point number one, and making sure that we're able to align each point on a customer journey with a lifecycle stage, and making sure that a database is free of duplicates, contacts with syntax errors, things like that, is really, really key, and something that we advise spending time on.
There was a question in from Roger, which was, in a multi-channel plan, how do you correctly attribute the channel?
Cool. Well, in an ideal world, it's done automatically for you. And if your CRM system is set up correctly and you are using campaign functionality, just using HubSpot as an example, typically you're going to get 2 points of measurement. You're going to get an original source for where that contact came from originally, and that could be paid social, paid media, organic search, what have you. And then last touch, what was the last thing that they interacted with? So you get those 2 points of attribution off the bat as standard within something like HubSpot, and it's pretty good at doing it automatically for you. The tool that really helps you do that is by using the campaigns tool a lot more robustly and making sure that you are tagging assets to campaigns so that that attribution is possible. The ultimate one, though, and kind of like the golden one, Roger, is like self-attribution on your contact us or talk to sales forms that you've got on your website. Make sure that you're putting in an option there which says, where did you hear about us? And just getting people to self-attribute. And that actually goes a really, really long way to helping you understand where to deploy marketing budget in future.
Yeah, I always used to make that a compulsory field for my sales team. It's so
Good idea.
valuable. Question from Jamie. Can you talk us through how you create an advocacy score of existing clients? How much can be automated versus manual?
Cool. That's a great question. It really depends on how much time you have and whether or not you have got the ability to integrate platform technology into your CRM. So there's a platform called Churn Zero that I've seen used before to do this, whereby what they're doing is they're looking at recency, frequency, and value metrics with regards to how someone is using a platform, if we're talking about SaaS here. It works for B2C slightly differently. I'll get onto that in a second. But if you're able to log in a CRM how frequently people are using the service that they've paid for, what you're then able to do is start to look at when behavior falls like one standard deviation below what you would expect to be normal, you can then consider that to be risk of churn. So rather than it being a score, it's more about a kind of proactive bucketing system to let account managers know when expected behavior has changed and that they then need to do something about that. Yep, talking about SaaS, sweet. For B2C, a little bit different. And again, it comes into recency, frequency, value. And again, it comes into when someone falls a standard deviation below what we understand to be accepted average behavior. I used to work for a gambling company, and we would expect people to come on and spend a certain amount of money each week, each month, what have you, on certain products. Based on how frequently they were winning, we would expect that number to go down if they were not winning as frequently as they would like to. And so when we're seeing things like that, the way that we would look to reactivate people is just by sending them free bets and those sorts of things. And that's a really, really nice mechanism to mitigate risk of churn and those sorts of things. In terms of setting it up as a score, I don't know. I think tying it directly to behavior is much more valuable than coming up with something that's a little more arbitrary, I would suppose.
Nadia, you added a comment here about iSecurity. Would you be happy to come off mute and share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, sure. So, thank you for this, Mitch. It's super helpful and great insights. Managed to at iSecurity did manage to kind of have this kind of clear line of sight between, lead all the way through to pipeline and revenue. Saw it at we didn't implement it from customer onwards because the retention rate was so good. But where I did struggle was at a more detailed level, not just at a country level, what's driving pipe and revenue, but which campaigns and which tactics and which channels are driving the most revenue. Is that just down to um, kind of HubSpot, strict HubSpot management and asset tagging and so forth, or is there something else?
You can certainly make your life easier by having like a higher level of discipline in campaign management within a tool like HubSpot. To understand which channels are driving revenue, which posts and which geographies and things like that, I would just make sure that whenever I set up a campaign in HubSpot, I am adding every single asset that is used as part of that campaign to it. And you do that by clicking the big orange Add Asset button. And you can do it with pretty much everything, you know. You can do it with social posts, you can do it with lists. So even if you're uploading a list of individuals of contacts to a database, you can add that as an asset to a campaign. And then what happens is that whenever an individual interacts with those assets, and then subsequently a deal object is created and associated with them, the attribution will go back to the campaign.
Right.
When that deal record moves through into closed won, you'll see that appear as in your ROI metrics within your HubSpot campaign format.
Mm.
Then able to draw down some really, really powerful reporting around that. And you can then just look at the campaign reporting in isolation
Right.
against the ROI that is generated as a result from a deal being moved to closed won. But it just doesn't work unless the assets are tagged as part of that campaign. It will fall down and you won't get a complete picture otherwise.
Thank you. Can you do it retrospectively, or does it have to be done at the moment you post a social link or something?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay, right. So
So
I'm
there's
getting
only
a
one
bit
way to find
technical.
out.
I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Great question, though. Thank you very much.
Mitch, I think another question is how do you get the business aligned behind the core metrics and everyone believing that it's the one source of truth? I mean, I've worked in so many companies where different departments are using different dashboards and different data, and you end up with metrics that vary depending on which source you're looking at. And in my most catastrophic scenario, board meeting where finance presents completely different metrics to marketing and sales. I learned a lot from that moment. It was not pleasant. Yeah, how do you get everyone aligned?
It's difficult. The way that I've seen this done before, and I'll tell another little story. So a few years ago, I worked for a business called InPost, and they're an out-of-home parcel delivery locker service. You might have seen their big yellow logos on parcel lockers outside of Sainsbury's and Waitrose and things like that. And what I was asked to do was to set up a like-for-like holistic system of measurement for the entire sales org globally. And this was tricky because they all had different ways of selling. They all had different metrics that they were tracking. And it was difficult for the leadership team to understand how different business units were performing against others as a result. And so what we did was we got all of those stakeholders together in a room for a series of workshops. Every single sales leader in every single geography, underpinned by a marketing team in the same room. And what we did is we sat down and we drew out and got to a point where we all understood what a typical customer journey looked like for both sides of the business, for customers who would use the lockers to get things delivered, but then also for the brands that we would sell the service to so that they were offering it to their customers. So we got everyone in the room, and it took a little bit of time, but we got a big lucid chart up on the board and we all sat down there and agreed on what we thought the atypical customer journey was. We then designed our lead scoring model in line with that, and again made sure everyone agreed, so we were all tracking things in the same way. We did the same for a universal pipeline layout and the same thing for a more universal customer success program. We made sure that everyone in the room agreed on the metrics that we all wanted to track, and we ran the project that way, and all of the dashboards were built as a result of that. And so then everyone was on the same page, and everyone was using this like-for-like holistic system of measurement. If you don't have an executive sponsor in the room that's going to tell everyone that they need to get on and play nice, that's also difficult. If your executive sponsor is passive and is like, look, guys, I don't care how it works, just get on with it, it's never going to work. They need to be involved. They need to be a positive and contributing presence in those discussions too, whoever that might be it a chief executive or a chief revenue officer or what have you. There needs to be clear direction that an executive sponsor thinks these things are really important, and therefore everyone else needs to think that they're important too.
Thank you. And I think something that's very front of mind for a lot of businesses right now, particularly those that are moving up market, is how to adapt for an ABM focus. So you don't have marketing qualified leads, you've got account based. What do you need to do to adapt for that move?
Sure, great question. So a couple of practical things that I've seen done here. If your ABM has got a higher sort of outbound bias, and typically it does because you're going to deploy an SDR team against an ABM campaign. Some practical tips that I've seen to do this is have something called a pre-pipe set up. Now, what a pre-pipe is it's a sales pipeline, it's a deal pipeline that sits in front of your actual sales pipeline and sort of serves as like a case management system for your outbound team, for your SDR team who are responsible for trying to get a buzz going with these specific accounts. What you would do is create a deal record for each account that you've got on your ABM plan there. Start small would be my advice. Start with 5 to 10 accounts, get them in there, and then have your SDR team start to make a case file, understand how the org chart sits, who are the likely champions, who are the likely budget holders, what are their specific pain points, can we catalog those? And then use that as a means to launch your outreach, your personalized outreach that typically is going to be driven by an SDR function. You would build your pre-pipe in this way. You would have prospect identified as your first stage. And like I say, you would just create a deal record for each account that exists within your ABM target list. Outreach commenced would be your next stage, and that's when your SDR team have started their outreach to the different stakeholders and they've personalized it and have gotten that going. It is the next stage. Positive response to outreach would be a typical stage 3. Qualification meeting booked or qualification meeting completed would be number 4. Handover to sales, stage 5. Close lost would be the one where it's not going to work out. And you sit that in front of your sales pipeline. And then when things move into handover to sales, you can have that deal record just automatically go into your sales pipeline. What you've then got is a funnel conversion metric right there for your pre-pipe. I would recommend tying that to life cycle stages as well. So you can start right off at lead stage, for example. Once a qualification meeting is booked, those can transform into an MQL. Once it's sales accepted, you can transfer it into an SQL, and then once it moves into the sales pipeline, it can be flagged as an opportunity. And then you've got your stage-by-stage funnel conversion there from things that have been generated through an ABM campaign. That's how I would do it, at least.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion about how to move into that. We have another question from Ed. For the right side of the bow tie, are there key triggers you use which can be used for maximizing advocates, case studies, referrals, or deeper partnerships?
Are there triggers that I use? I would suppose once I can see 2 closed-won opportunities, that's usually a pretty decent indicator that that person's going to be receptive to those sort of comms. Case studies is probably where I would go first. I think those are typically the easiest to get. Case studies and reviews. Based on getting case studies and reviews out of it and based on a relationship continuing, that's when I'd probably start to talk about, hey, look, we're doing this event. It would be great if you'd sit on a panel. Are you available here? I'll buy you lunch and beer. And other things like that. So I think the triggers really is always just going to go back to your basic metrics, recency, frequency, value. Or have they transacted with you more than once in X amount of time? And then usually to me, that's a good leading indicator. Hopefully that answers the question.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? And Mitch, any other insights you want to add about some of your experiences? I don't know if you're working globally, but I always like to ask, do you see anything different between different markets?
Yeah, I think in the American market, RevOps is much more mature. I think it's something that seems to have a higher level of excitement. It's getting there in the UK and Europe. I think it is something that's starting to pick up. But it's still a couple of years behind the US in my opinion. Don't work in any other markets, so I can't really speak for APAC or LATAM or anywhere like that, unfortunately.
And a big question for you that is being hotly debated at the moment. What do you think is the difference between RevOps and a go-to-market engineer? I got shouted at because I said, are they the same thing? Oh, I got shut down.
It depends who you ask. There are those that would say it is the same thing. Yeah, I kind of think it is the same thing, you know. I think GTM engineer is just maybe a sexier title that is more readily identifiable than revenue operations. ultimately they're there to do the same thing. It's to join up the different silos in a business that are responsible for creating revenue and just help them to do it better. They do the same thing. It's just they've got Pepsi and Coke sort of labeling, I would suppose. I'm not prepared to like stand on a hill and die or fight anyone over that. But yeah, I think they're kind of the same thing. But I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Yeah, I think we
Every
can
day's a
set
school
up
day.
a debate with a GTM engineer and a RevOps and see what they come up with. I'm quite up for doing this. I think it'd be a really engaging conversation. So, Mitch, we'll obviously share the deck and the recording, and then also the audit. People can sign up for that, and then you're happy to have a look at their HubSpot systems. But you also work across other CRMs as well. Is that right? It's not just HubSpot.
Yeah, we do. I mean, HubSpot's kind of our sweet spot, but yeah, we do Pipedrive, Salesforce, Scoro is a new one that we're seeing a little bit, Attio as well. Yeah, we do the whole lot, but we like HubSpot.
And also, you're happy for people to reach out on LinkedIn or to respond to email as well if they've got any direct questions.
Yeah, please do. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. It's Mitch Richards, and then it's just the guy wearing a cowboy hat. So they should find me relatively easily.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and those insights. And we'll follow up with the recording and the deck as well if you want to revisit.
Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. It's been a lot of fun.